I have tried time and time again, but I can never get fully addicted to idle or clicker games. Sure, I will get lost for hours and hours on a game for a couple of days and press away to get more chickens or cookies or whatever, but the excitement slowly starts to fade as new stimuli are introduced in my daily life. Eventually, I stop playing altogether for weeks or months on end. Why can't I seem to get hooked? The basic idea behind a clicker game is that you click a button and you get a reward. Complicated, I know, and most would agree that these games are derived from what we know as operant conditioning. This is when a positive reinforcement, or a punishment, is used to increase or decrease a behavior. The desired behavior is to click a button and keep playing the game, and the reward is an arbitrary item or resource the player can accumulate. Ever since hunter-gatherer days, humans have loved to collect things. In the case of clicker games, it's that arbitrary item or resource that you can use to increase the rate at which you gain even more items or resources. The human brain loves large numbers, especially when it equates to a value we can call our own, and this reward is what should motivate the player to continue to play. Designing games to condition its player into becoming addicted is big business. But why aren't these games having much of an effect on me? I can start by looking at how rewards are given to players, not necessarily just how, but the when and why. Fixed ratio reward schedules are a staple for the genre. This is when the amount of time between receiving rewards is fixed and clear to understand by the player. You click a button and get a reward. However, as you can see on this graph, it's often seen that some people take a rest period between rewards before starting again. Maybe you clicked a button 1,200 times and can now afford that new upgrade. After you purchase the upgrade, it'll take 2,300 button clicks more to get to the next one. Right after receiving the reward, and before the grind for the next, you have a rest period to take a break. These rest periods allow players to leave the game and move on to something else. Turn-based games such as Civilization have the same problem with fixed scheduling, but they work around it in an interesting way. You know it will take X amount of turns to build that new unit or develop the technology, but as the game progresses, you are never really given that break point because there is always a decision to be made somewhere in your empire. There is more involved than just fixed reward in clicker games, however. They also employ fixed interval rewards. In clicker and idle games, these are generally time-based rewards, such as the free time warps in Adventure Capitalist and sugar lumps in Cookie Clicker. This would keep players coming back on a regular schedule to play and progress further, hopefully compelling them to push through the grind to their next fixed ratio reward. There are variable versions of both these reward schedules. The variable ratio is the most famous and recognizable, which includes the infamous loot crates and even critical hits as examples. This is when a reward is given after an unpredictable amount of responses. I'm always sucked into the wheel spins in Forza Horizon. You never know how many button clicks until that next reward. My next spin could be that hypercar I always want. Cookie Clicker has a great variable interval reward that never fails to excite me, with the cookie frenzies that pop up to boost my cookie production. The game also has fixed ratio rewards, with each click and fixed interval with the sugar lumps. So why can't I play for more than a couple of hours or sometimes even minutes? Why can't a game that was designed to be addictive and motivating keep me playing? Well, let me show you why. That's how the game feels to play. You click a button, it makes a little sound, and my cookies, money, or points go up. You just click and yes, it's easy, but doesn't feel good. That brings me to what I believe is the main problem with clicker and idle games. It feels good to get the reward, but it doesn't feel good to play. Game feel is the combination of sights, sounds, and responses to immediate actions we get when controlling something within a digital environment. It's a real sensation your brain creates to connect you with what you're playing. Games that feel responsive, alive, and attentive to their players have a good or even great game feel. I may be clicking buttons on a controller or keyboard, but the sensation of simply playing offers a satisfaction in itself. I can tear through enemies and beat them with ferocious brutality. Playfully snuff the life out of a rebellion as Vader in LEGO Star Wars. I can feel the weight of my movements as I pilot my Titan in Titanfall 2. Even the like and subscribe buttons for the video you're watching right now feel good to press. Go on, give it a try and see what I mean. In these games and many others, I'm not just enjoying the various reward schedules to keep me motivated, but I get to feel and experience feedback with every button press, and it feels like I have an impact or meaning in the game beyond increasing an arbitrary number of resources collected. Keeping game feel as a priority and the reward schedules in mind, it's time to crack open a beer and experiment with a solution or make a terrible mistake. Obviously, I started by making some buttons to see which one felt right. I tried to get creative with some of the buttons and wanted to use the man getting stabbed, but my game got dark and twisted really quickly. So I stuck with the classic button and figured I'd find another way to incorporate game feel later. I will let you know right now, this first concept fell apart, mainly because of this crucial mistake. In a woeful attempt to put a twist on the genre, I decided it would be cool to make a couple of different buttons for the player to click and create more than one resource, so you had to strategize which button was most important at the time. This added some decision making to ease the mind-numbing burden of button clicking. Now there is not just one fixed ratio reward schedule, but 4. All these clicker games also have some type of progression system to help you earn resources even when not actively clicking the button, so I had to create this too. And let me introduce to you the overworld map. I thought this is clearly what every good clicker or idle game is missing, an overworld map in what should be a simple game. On the map is land. You can build farms to grow your crops for you. And this implements that sweet, sweet joy of a fixed interval reward system. And it's a map, so might as well put a caravan that pops up from time to time to travel around and give you a nice boost in resources. That'll check the box for variable interval rewards. If you were wondering when things started to get really out of hand, it was right at this moment. The moment when I implemented the variable interval rewards. By allowing the player to decide if they wanted to build and upgrade farms to increase resources, or if they wanted to create an upgraded town to increase total troop capacity. Now you may be wondering, Matt, why would I need troop capacity? And my answer to that is, it's to wage war against the other armies inhabiting these lands. Yeah, what was supposed to be an experiment in making a clicker game with all 4 reward schedules that even I could become addicted to has become a genre-combining UI nightmare. I wasn't having any fun with the button clicking. It was still just buttons that increased the rewards, and the only time I was enjoying myself was during these battles I created. There was a massive break period between these as I waited for my armies to replenish, resource pile to grow, and my empire to expand. Even more disheartening, after a dozen battles, I started to feel disengaged from those as well. It felt like I had made 2 separate game loops that used each other as breakpoints for the player, and as a last-ditch effort, I added a gimmick. I called it the God Potato. I wanted to spend my resources to be able to drop a large potato on the battlefield and cause a bit of chaos and maybe add some fun. I started with a big red button, similar to the others I was using, and the potato dropped and it was a cool effect. I was having fun dropping potatoes from the sky, but the button didn't feel right to me. This is a button that can drop a massive potato at will. So I added some dust and a thumping sound effect whenever it was pressed. The potato needed something too. It was plummeting down to the ground after all, so I used another dust effect on impact and I added a shadow to show more depth to its movement. I even went as far as adding some old razzle dazzle with screen shake. And now this was something I was enjoying. This was something that I liked to interact with. This had game feel. So I stripped everything away that wasn't this button, the potatoes, or the open grassy fields I dropped them in. I figured with each button I'm still getting a resource, even if it's being eaten away, so it qualifies per my goal of a clicker game where you press a button to gain a resource. How do I make this resource mean something? I use the towns from the overworld and the soldiers to make little societies on the brink of collapse from starvation. The player gets a score based on how well these two societies are thriving. They will get food to survive and grow whenever the player launches a potato. The towns use the food to grow their populations or create farms to grow their own food and expand their borders. I also made these two groups mortal enemies to spice things up a bit when borders grow too much. This was fun, but also became boring after a while because the potatoes just launched and then were collected. Sometimes the townfolk would get caught in a small battle over a potato or even damaged by a potato landing on them. The button had a good feel to press, but it still became repetitive and monotonous after a time. Introducing the big red arrow. I realized the player was missing control and a layer of agency over the potatoes they were dropping. So as an unlockable, after your world score increases, you receive this arrow which is used to aim the potatoes, so you can be gracious and give each settlement its food supplies or purposely cause a battle to unfold. At this point, I was feeling pretty good about what I'd created in this concept. I had a clickable button that felt good to operate. I even added in some late game progression for these mighty little nations I was starting to become attached to. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts or ideas would be on this game. Should I explore this concept further? Should I never attempt a clicker game again? For more game design questions and exploration, please subscribe to the channel and stay tuned as I release more to come on our shared game design and development journey.